We want to welcome by phone Anthony Ponter, who is the curator for the Shona Spirits in Stone exhibit at the San Diego Natural History Museum. Tell us a little bit about what that is all about.
Well, thank you, and it's wonderful to be on your show. Well, actually, this is our 8th exhibit at the San Diego Museum of Natural History, and old friends, it's always a privilege to come back to such a fine institution in such a beautiful city. We are bringing in an incredible exhibit of hundreds of handcrafted stone sculptures from Zimbabwe and Africa. And the exhibit is designed in an interesting way this year because it's not just spirits and stone, these handcrafted sculptures from Africa, but it's also arts and animals of Africa, and that's the museum and ourselves have collaborated to design this show, because some of the earliest times, if you think of the cave paintings of Lascaux and the Bushman paintings, there's always been representation of people and animals together. There's such a strong bond, and so we decided the Shona do, apart from the spiritual sculptures, they do beautiful abstractions and realistic animal stone sculptures, and that is the link with us and the museum this year, this particular exhibit. So there'll be live animals in the space.
I know, Anthony, but take us back, because this exhibition holds a very dear place in your heart as well as in your ancestry. Tell us how this love and this passion began.
I was born in Africa, my grandfather before me, and I grew up literally under the eyes of these magnificent sculptures in and around our home in Zimbabwe, and around the artists. And I was blessed because I grew up in a colonial home that didn't suffer from the racism and apartheid that covered the rest of our country. My father, God bless his soul, believed that people were people and they were fascinating if they were different from you. So I grew up with diversity in a segregated country. And mainly, to me, that was manifest through these sculptures. So they were with me, forever. I took my American bride back. By the way, I did have my green card.
Okay.
Me and Gerard.
Just checking.
I did have my green card, but married for love, not for citizenship.
And I was reading about your wonderful honeymoon that you took her to. You actually ended up taking her to your homeland and showing her the artwork.
Yes, and I designed this honeymoon, having lived there all my life, been involved in conservation and the animal world as well, to be, all the romantic out of Africa kind of safari. We went back, and I had not spoken to my wife about this artwork that was so intrinsic to me. I sort of took it for granted. And when we got back, got to Zimbabwe, she was just blown away by the energy, by the creativity. I mean, you see the work and you think you're looking at Picasso or Miro or Brancusi, and you're in fact looking at very primal representations of spirituality and reality through the stone that these people who've never seen Western art create. So that's what our whole honeymoon became, and at the end of it, the artists asked us to try and bring it back to America, and we were the first to bring it to the United States.
Wow.
And that was the birth of Spirits in Stone, and the latest manifestation is going to be at the San Diego Natural History Museum from July 11th to October 12th of this year. And for more information, I urge everybody to go to the Natural History Museum website, which is a gorgeous website.
Oh,
it's
beautiful.
SDNHM.org. And the visuals that you have for the Shona art, Anthony, are just mind-blowing. I mean, they really are. You mentioned a few Western artists that they remind you of. They remind me of a painter named Botero, with the big-bodied, and they're made out of stone and shiny stone. And tell us a little bit about where this stone comes from. Is it only available in Zimbabwe, or?
Well, it's mainly serpentine, which is all over the world. In fact, California state stone is serpentine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But the stone in California is sort of they call it a greasy green. It's a waxy green, consistent color, whereas in Zimbabwe, there's over 200 to 300 variations of color that manifest in the stone, as you've seen through the pictures. And the vividness of it, the way that the rock itself is art, even if you just look at it in the ground. There's the single largest volcanic ridge in the world runs through Zimbabwe, and the old heavy elements, the platinum, the copper, the chromium, the iron, the things that color stone, were forced to the top of the earth and up into this mountain range. And there is no carving stone in the world like it. So we ask ourselves the question, how in the one country in Africa in which people carve stone did it happen to have the world's best carving stone? It's a marvelous chicken and egg story.
And, I mean, I've seen some of the pieces, actually, and they're just crafted just so beautifully without any machines. I mean, a lot of these sculptures are handcrafted. Is that correct?
Yes, Allie, and thanks for bringing that up. The precision and the absolute certainty and knowledge is inborn into these people. You know, this tradition goes back 1,000 years, and there is no apprentice system. There's no school. There's no Royal College of Shona sculpture. If you want to carve in a family, even in a family perhaps where no sculpture was ever before, you have complete permission to try. And you see these little kids with a hammer and a chisel. Could you imagine in America?
No, I
can't. And a hammer and a chisel and a 5-year-old. And the creation is, the permission is so available there to create, to just be who you are and express through the stone. And it just imbues their whole society.
Now, Anthony, I wanted to ask you, I mean, you started this 30 years ago, and back then I'm sure that Shona was not as well known as it is today. So the big question is, now that it's a very well-known art form, perhaps not as well-known as you'd like it to be, but it seems to be very widely known. Has it had an impact on the creators of the art? Are they aware now, as compared with 30 years ago, that they are creating something that the world is interested in?
You know, there are artists among the general population of artists who have come out to the West, who have done shows, who've done carving workshops, exhibitions. In fact, we're hoping, if we can get the visa situation sorted out, to bring an artist to San Diego, as we have in the past, to interact, to create, to sculpt right in the space, which would be fascinating for people.
Yeah, it would.
So, yes, it's true, and yet so many of the artists are still so very pure. They're aware of, they look at, they incorporate, but I think it goes all the way back through a Shona filter and comes back out again very Shona rather than Western influence. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think when you see the pieces, it really does make sense.
Yeah.
I think the pieces still look pure. I mean, they don't look like they're commercialized in any way, shape, or form.
No, and I was just amazed at the element of simplicity in the galleries, and the beautiful, just the figures and the way they're shaped. I mean, the squatting and some of the positions that they're in are just so eloquent and so simplistic that it's almost like a Picasso.
Exactly, you know, and people have compared it also to Inuit,
yes.
Mexican,
the totem
Eskimo
poles
work. Shares a lot of that same basic, beautiful, primal, experiential shaping, and that's one of the things they don't think too much about it. This is art that comes straight from the soul, straight from the heart, through the hands.
Now, Anthony, I wanted to ask you, we've got just about a minute left in this segment. Time flies when you're having fun. But I know you think about it a lot because you're enlisting this art in the cause of trying to overcome some of that racism that you grew up with back in the day, and you see this as a way to close that chapter of an unhappy past.
Absolutely, you know, and I think it's true, don't you, too, for everywhere, every community, that art is the shortest line between cultures. It's the most eloquent speaker of the heart of the differences that we celebrate between us.
Oh, absolutely.
And when people look at this work, and I remember we've been doing it for 30 years, and it was just a sort of an interesting trivialization when we came in. But now people are starting to understand that great work does not just come from Europe. Eurocentric appreciation of art doesn't apply anymore. Great work can come from anywhere, from any culture, and that's what we try and prove.
Excellent.
Well, you've done a great job of bringing it over here and showing us that.
Anthony, I want to thank Anthony Ponter, the curator of the Shona Spirits and Stone exhibit at the San Diego Natural History Museum, which will be happening July 11th to October 12th. Go to SDNHM.org for more information. Anthony, thanks for calling in.